Hi. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I feel a little left out. I'm the only one without a steering wheel in front of me. Um, but we wanted to get together tonight, and there's one of us still missing. I think he'll join in a minute. But we were going to talk about law enforcement reform. And, it started, it was just going to be me and James Toller, who's running for Kentucky's 78th district, and Jacob Clark, and it escapes me right now which district Jacob's running for, but he'll be
18th.
along in a minute to tell us. Which one?
18.
18th. Frank's running for House of Representatives for District 6, and I'm running for District 2. But we were going to talk about law enforcement reform, and I had to invite Frank because Frank's been out to some of the rallies. I visited a rally, and Frank and I have both talked. Hi, Jacob, we're live. Frank and I have both talked with law enforcement a little. Frank's talked to them more on the streets than I have, and we've had David Patterson on a couple of times. Well, more like 4 times, and I tried to get David tonight, but it was a little late notice for David. That's my bad. But I just thought we would talk because I think we're the only party who is serious about law enforcement reform. I really do. I mean, the Republicans clearly don't want to do anything. And the Democrat solution is to basically be hard on law enforcement. 20 years ago, they were wanting to be tough on crime, tough on drugs. Now they want to be tough on law enforcement. And I don't think just constantly ratcheting down and trying to be tougher with people's the solution. So what's the solutions, gents? Let's hear some solutions.
I'm going to other people to talk, but I'm navigating right now. So let other people talk first.
That, and once Frank gets started, oh my God. You better run for it while you got a chance, Jacob.
What do you mean by that, Robert? What does that mean exactly?
I mean you're verbose and you talk a lot once you get started.
I do not.
So I think we're all on board with ending qualified immunity, right?
I think so. Even our friend David Patterson's on board for that one, I think.
And the police union, I'm waiting for an argument of why we should keep them, But something else that I had thought of, but our good friend Chris Weiss brought up a while back, is body cams. I think there should be body cams on every officer, on every dash, and anytime there's interaction with the public, they need a body cam. And of course, folks are going to say, "Whoa, that's going to cost a lot of money. How are we going to pay for it?" But it actually will save loads and loads of money in the long run. If you think about, like I've said in court hearings, and they're trying to figure out what happened. There is some event, and this witness says this and that. If you don't know, an eyewitness is like the worst evidence possible. Right. And so here's all these different versions of a story, and they have a court hearing. They have 5 or 6 sessions. The real story really never gets nailed down, and they just kind of compromise on a story. Well, with body cams, it would save money very quick, with the real story being right there immediately. Mm-hmm. And somebody saying make sure they're turned on. I think there should be some kind of.
I have a thought.
Go ahead. Think. Hello?
I can't hear.
Go ahead.
He had a thought. and
Everybody
the rest of
disappeared
them
for a
locked
second
up.
there.
Okay, you're back. I thought maybe that's all the CPU power.
Oh.
You had that one thought, and that was it.
It was past tense, so like
My
maybe it was
one
gone.
thought is GoPro cameras cost. You can get a dash camera for a car for $30 now. You can get a
Right.
body camera for $30. How much does it
Yeah.
cost to upload data to the cloud?
Well,
It's
when you-
ridiculous to say the cost is an obstacle. It's not.
Well, you know,
But it's
I don't
really-
think cost is an
it
obstacle, but it is a factor, and it's not just a matter of randomly uploading it. You need to upload it in such a way that it's organized. There is some infrastructural cost with this. There is some maintenance cost. There are some administrative costs. I don't think they're prohibitive, but you know what? I've never actually managed it. I don't know. I could be wrong. I think it's worth looking into. How much does it
Definitely.
cost?
well, yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with the body cams. I like the body cam idea. And I was back in my hometown where I'm originally from the last couple of days. And I actually talked to a KSP officer, Kentucky State Police,
Mhm.
and I was talking to him about the ending of qualified immunity.
Mhm.
And he told me he was for it. You know, he's all for ending qualified immunity. And I said, what can we do to help protect the good ones out here versus the bad ones? You know, and talk to him a little bit about body cams and things like that. And he said, I don't have a body cam. He said, but I do have a microphone on me 100% of the time. And he said, as soon as my lights come on, my mic turns on. He said, it don't go off until that car pulls away or I'm at the jailhouse pretty much
Right.
with an inmate. Even a microphone would be okay, but the physical evidence of seeing what is actually going on is much stronger than just words over a cassette tape recording or whatever.
Right.
It's always better to see the visual than to hear it, but at least it's something that they can go by.
Well, I was intrigued by sort of the second pillar of Larry Sharp's quick plan, which is insurance, individual insurance. Because to me, if you get personal insurance involved, and James as a truck driver has insurance. Most of us as just automobile drivers have insurance. I've carried professional insurance before. Doctors, lawyers, they all have insurance. I don't see why all those people should need insurance, and somebody who's walking around with a combination of deadly and non-deadly weapons wouldn't need insurance. I mean, that's kind of freaking crazy. They're the ones going around with implements that are actually designed to hurt people, and they don't have to have insurance. But a lot of the discussion of what should they have to carry in terms of microphones, in terms of cameras, so on and so forth. To me, a lot of that would just get settled in the relationship between the officers and the insurance companies. What do we think about that?
Right. So, like the little device you can plug into your car that tells the insurance company how fast you go and different things like that, and it makes their rates cheaper. So,
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Sure.
I mean, they
And-
come out with cameras for rear view, for the side mirrors and things like that on cars anymore with the
Yep.
screen inside. What's the difference? The difference is we're paying for that.
Yeah,
That's the
of course.
difference.
What you got, Frank?
All right. This reminds me a lot of the job I had as technical support for iPhones, where
Uh-huh.
our supervisors could listen in on our calls as they were occurring, or they could listen to taped calls to rate your
Uh-huh.
performance. Why don't the police have the same process rating their interactions, the police interactions with the public, to where the supervisor can go back and say, okay, let's bring up your last interaction from yesterday. Here's where we think you were good. Here's where we think you were bad. And just, try to constantly make the process better for all involved.
So we got a question from Lex Hannon. He's asking what the other parts of QUIC are. So the Q is for end qualified immunity. The I is for insurance, or I focus on the individual insurance, because if the department carries it, that doesn't really get you where I think we want to be. C is for civil asset forfeiture. We want to get rid of civil asset forfeiture because a lot of departments are funding and militarizing themselves using the funds from civil asset forfeiture. Plus, I've had somebody reach out to me in the last couple of days that has a civil asset forfeiture where it's basically used for revenge. I mean, think about it. You tick some cops off, and they can take your property without proving you're guilty of anything, but they just say, hey, we think this car was involved in, or we think this money was involved in. They don't ever have to prove anything, ever.
Right.
And you would have to take the department to court to prove your car or your money or your whatever was innocent in order to get it back. I mean, that's a great attack vector for bad actors and law enforcement that want revenge. And then the last C is for cannabis. We gotta legalize cannabis. We gotta, what am I looking for? We gotta D blank. It's a Schedule 1. We gotta deschedule cannabis.
Make
absolutely.
It like
And we really, where he's really going there is we need to end the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Right.
And he wants to start with cannabis because that's the easy inroad. And for me, that really resonates. And I sort of showed my hand when I picked the title for this is instead of calling it law enforcement reform, I called it reforming the law. And in my mind, our underlying problem is we ask law enforcement to be involved with a lot of things we don't, as a society, really need them involved with. Basically, we're picking fights with people that we don't agree with the way they live. We don't agree with the way they conduct themselves. Whatever it is, historically, we don't agree with who they marry. We don't agree with them on their color and choice of restaurants. We don't agree with them on their color of life partners. There's a long history of this, but we don't go get in that fight ourselves. Oh, no. We vote for somebody who will turn it into a law and then go have law enforcement deal with it. And that's how we tear our society apart. So for me, it's not really about reforming law enforcement. Yes, some of that needs to be done. But if you have such an egregious set of laws, all you can ever do is keep doubling down on more force, cracking down on this, cracking down on this, cracking down on this. And all the Democrats right now are really talking about is cracking down on law enforcement. They're taking the same thing, their same game they always play. Lex has it right. Government is force, and they're what? Quadrupling down on it, sextupling down on it. Where are we now? I'm lost. It's all they ever do. It's all they ever do.
It's all about laws and regulations. I mean, since the government has gotten so big, that's all they want to do is throw more laws and throw more regulations. We need deregulation is what we need in the country to better the country and get it back on track.
Right.
Government's just getting way too big, and we got to do something about it. If we don't, who's to say that we'll even have an election in 2024? Because the way this is going, who knows?
When you limit the size of government, you get rid of a whole lot of problems. If government was forced to live within a balanced budget, you'd get rid of a lot of problems.
Right. And I mean, that's the thing is
If
go ahead, Jacob.
I was going to say, if they were just more transparent, if the people
That too.
who vote saw more of what's really going on, then there would be some boundaries that they would have to abide by without even being forced. Right now there's like no risk of them being voted out because they hide the thing so well to fund their pet projects. They give us $1,200 a piece while they go and spend, $4 to $6 trillion funding their buddies.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, Brad Barron's joined in too. You could have
Hello,
joined the show, Brad. You still
bring
can,
Brad
for that
on.
matter, if you want. I'll throw you a link. But Brad lives in a rural area. He has questionable internet connectivity, and he has to travel somewhere usually to join something. But
I'll say in my district, we have, I've actually got a video on my phone. I'll send it to you after we get off here, but I got one of the local city cops arresting a guy, and they didn't know that he had cameras in his home, and they caught this police officer stealing this guy's money and putting it in his own pocket. Okay. So
right.
he's been accused of this a couple of times, and nobody can do anything about it because he's a cop. Well,
Right.
This guy had cameras up, and you can clearly see him cleaning this guy out. Of course, he's being arrested, and it's some kind of crime, whatever. But I never read a due process about the cop gets to steal your money. I never read that. So it's pretty interesting the things they get away with. And they keep getting funded. We can do a bad job and we lose our job. Our boss fires us. But if they do a bad job, then they still keep getting funded. Another thing I had thought about is, like our sheriffs are more accountable to the people because it's an elected position.
Right.
So I talked about moving the, getting rid of police departments and moving those that are needed, those law enforcement officers, into the sheriff's department under somebody who the people directly elect. So I got some flack for that idea. But then I said, what about if our chief of police is now an elected official? So that would kind of be the same thing. And that wouldn't be an all-out fix, but it makes them more accountable to the people. And I think it's really important that the people making these calls are directly accountable to the people. Otherwise, you get like a mayor or somebody that says, well, they're doing their job or whatever. They pass the buck.
Right. Well, I think we need to strip the mayors of qualified immunity too. I mean, qualified immunity isn't a law enforcement specific thing. I think the city council needs to be liable. And what about district attorneys? Shouldn't district attorneys who hide evidence, shouldn't they be accountable?
Exactly. I think a lot of people overlook. Go ahead. Sorry, Jacob, go ahead.
I just said, or we could make them a VP.
Right?
Either
I mean, but a lot of people, whenever you say end qualified immunity, they think that that's just a jab straight at the police officers.
Right.
And that's it. But it's not. There's so many other people within the government ranks that are protected by qualified immunity that really should not be protected at all.
Right.
Because you work for the people, you should not be protected from the people. The people should be the ones to tell you that this is what's going to happen. If it's a lawsuit or whatever it is, and that's, I think that's why we get a lot of argument whenever we say end qualified immunity, because they really think that it only protects police officers. but
Right.
it doesn't. If they would read on into it, I really think that people would say, we've got to end qualified immunity. There's just too many people that should not be protected, that's being protected for what?
I agree. I agree.
I want to tell you a quick case of this, okay? What James is talking about. So in my area, there's a CPS worker that on the in the seat there, under oath, gave sworn testimony that she later admitted that it was a lie on video. Okay, tried to take these people's children away. Finally, the case got dropped after the people threw a big enough fit, right? Well, they tried to file a suit to sue the social worker for lying under oath, perjury under oath, and he got kicked out for qualified immunity. Apparently, qualified immunity protects people who want to steal your kids and will lie under oath as long as they're a government employee.
Well,
That's it.
I understand how qualified immunity could keep the person from being sued for liability. I had no idea, and I don't know if it can protect them from perjury. But I guess that would also be up to the DA. It seems to me the DA could, go out on a limb and do their job and prosecute somebody for perjury.
Yeah, I don't see.
I know these people personally, and I know the lawyer personally, and it blew my mind when they said that she was protected with qualified immunity.
Well, see, and the thing is, we can sit here all day and say we don't see how it would protect somebody from perjury, but whenever it comes to the court, their argument is it doesn't say that it won't protect me from perjury, so it should protect me. The only thing it states is you're protected.
We ought to
Perjury.
look into that one.
Right?
Let's say that again, Frank.
Perjury should be perjury no matter who does it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you. Especially under oath. So how about this? Here we've got all these issues going on. We've got people being beat to death by police officers. All these different things going on, and Democrats and Republicans' solution to all these things is to what? What are they doing? Denouncing racism. They're doing these virtue signaling things, and there's nothing wrong with them. Just don't act like you're solving an issue at all. So you get up in the morning every day and have your coffee and denounce racism, and that's great. But you haven't fixed any of these problems that we have been discussing. Qualified immunity still let Derek Chauvin kill people before George Floyd. The body cam footage is still unavailable to the public of Breonna Taylor, or they never had body cams on to begin with. All these things that we talked about, we're discussing actual solutions, while Republicans and Democrats are discussing denouncing racism.
I think what you just said cuts both ways. Is to those who are denouncing racism, I feel a need to express that if George Floyd had been white, that doesn't fix anything. That doesn't fix a damn thing. And at the same time, I feel like, some of the people who feel like nothing needs to be done, they need to understand that George Floyd very well could have been white. He very well could have been your brother. He very well could have been your sister. Statistically, blacks are about 2.7 times as likely to succumb to police violence
Sure.
But
you know, those numbers are numbers. The way I
Sure.
see it, it don't matter. We're all human,
that's
and we're
right.
all Americans.
That's right.
You
This
know,
is a problem for all of us, and we need to embrace that.
exactly. You know, the police officer I was talking to, and that agreed with me. You know, with the ending of qualified immunity. He also told me that in the law enforcement police officer Bill of Rights,
Mhm.
the same exact thing exists in those Bill of Rights.
Right.
He said, so they are protected to a sense with that. And he said, you know, I said, it's not that I'm singling out you guys as police officers, because I'm really not. I'm for the police officers. You know, I like police officers. I mean, they're here to protect us, you know, but the thing is, you take one bad person and put them in a mix of 15 or 20 good people. Well, what's going to stand out more to everyone? It's that one
Right.
bad person. And, you know, so we've got to take that out. And maybe let's just say that 100% of police officers are great. I mean, 100% guidelines, you know, and never do nothing wrong. You know, but you take the however many government officials that's protected by qualified immunity, well, there's your bad people. It still makes, just because you're wrapped up in the same bill and the same law out here with something, it still throws that negative effect toward the other person, because they're still, even though they may not be connected directly, they're connected by one stupid bill that's out there.
Right. Well, the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights in Kentucky is actually one of Patterson's favorite things to point out, because if you do so, I wish Patterson was with us to explain it, but I've heard it about 3 times, so I think I've got it. Is if you do something egregiously wrong, and I'm your commanding officer, I can come to you, say this is looking, you know, really bad. You know, looks like you're probably going to end up either needing to resign or get fired. Maybe you just want to go ahead and resign. So you go ahead and resign, and you go apply somewhere else and they call me in Kentucky. All I can say is, yeah, he worked here. That's it. I can't say, well, yeah, we let him go when he was finally caught on a home camera stealing money from somebody's house as he was making arrest. He'd been accused of that about 9 times, but this one guy actually got it on camera, so we had to go ahead and let him go. I couldn't say any of that. It would just be like, yeah, he worked with us for about 3 years. That's it. Which really is horrible from the perspective of the person who's hiring you. I mean, it could
Right.
be some nice, sweet little down home department who's really conscientious and wants to make sure they hire only the very best pristine of apples, but they're not allowed to check. Not really.
Well,
Do
I
they
mean,
have
that's
the
about,
same protection? Do we have that same protection for other people in other jobs? You know, is that a thing for me or you if we go apply for a job somewhere? Can
Some
our
companies,
past
some
employee-
some companies do have that policy. I know.
you know, the thing is, let's put this in like what you were saying there, Robert. You know, you can't legally tell somebody, you know, why they were let go or why they're not rehireable. You can only say, you know, yeah, they worked with me. And the bad thing about that is, let's take fire departments for an example. You know, you have a firefighter that goes into a burning house that, you know, that's supposed to be going in to put this fire out, or maybe even save a life that's inside the burning house. Well, you miss him for a while. Well, come to find out, he's in the very back room setting fire to that back room. You know, you let him go, and he goes to another fire department, and they call the other fire department, yeah, he was for us. Well, they hire him, just because he worked for them. He's got firefighter experience.
Yeah,
well,
but I've never heard of that.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, though, why can't that fire department say, you know what? Yeah, he worked for us, but there's no way possible that we would rehire him back because he was setting more fires while we were trying to put out the same fire.
Well, I don't know I don't know if a fire department can or can't. It's just to my understanding, a Kentucky police department can't.
Right. That's weird.
It's dangerous, is what that is.
My wife claims that human resources at where she used to work as an accountant, it's company policy everywhere that you're not allowed to say anything good or bad about the person, just the fact that they've worked there. That's all you can say. I don't understand that law. I don't understand that logic at all.
I don't know that that's a law, but I do know that that's not uncommon as a policy.
Right.
Well, I've seen it all over the country. Yeah. I've seen it all over the country within like the trucking industry, from state to state with trucking companies, they can only tell you that you work there. They can't tell you exactly what you've done and messed up. But whenever they go and pull what they call the DAC report in your driving record, they don't need to know what you've done and messed up because whatever you messed up on doing, that company's going to report that to the DAC. And there it is. That company's like, I don't want him. Look what he done. He just hit a daggone brand new tractor trailer.
Well, similarly, I think we would get that same effect with personal insurance, as if they had liability insurance. You mess up a few times, and your insurance is gonna price you out of being a law enforcement officer anymore.
Sure.
So all these things we're talking about are good for those that are good cops.
Sure.
Like you take the David Pattersons of the world, when you get rid of the bad cops, when they can no longer hold their job, and you've got guys like David Patterson, then they shine, and I would actually argue that it would make our law enforcement, the costs go down because now you only have the good cops that can operate within the system, and you don't have the bad cops, running around, running lawsuits up for the taxpayers to cover.
Now,
so I would argue that it's twofold, better for the taxpayers.
Now, David likes to point out that in terms of that personal insurance, I'm always championing that money don't just appear out of nowhere. And police officers, it's not like they're so well paid. They just have a bunch of extra money laying around to pay on insurance. So where does that come from? Where does that money for insurance come from?
Well,
come on, we're free market folks.
Even if, let's just say what we know is going to happen, right? If they made them carry insurance, it would be provided through taxes. That's what they would do.
Sure.
Living in the real world, that's what's going to happen. So it would be provided by taxes. How is that different than what we have now, where they just pay suits and go on down the road? That needs to be, there needs to be some level of liability on that officer for that, if it just costs them their job, whatever.
Right.
But
well, I like the idea of, we look at what the average cost for insurance is going to be, and we just pay them that much extra. And if they're good cops and have an exemplary record and their insurance is cheaper than that, yay! I mean, I'm all sorts of happy with the idea of good cops getting a little pay bump, little pay increase, saving a little money on insurance for being good cops. That sounds great to me.
Yeah, I mean, right.
I'm curious what people think the cost estimates for insurance would be. And I know it depends on where you're a policeman. You know, I think a big city cop would be more at risk.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, the type of duty you have as a detective versus as a beat cop versus narcotics or whatever. I'm guessing there's going to be different rates for different jobs, et cetera. But I'm curious what it would be per officer.
Anybody out there know any actuaries or anybody in insurance that might know where to start on this?
I doubt if the insurance industry would know yet until they've actually compiled data on it.
Sure, and I think
look at where it's at now. Okay, now we pay for it. We do. You know, we pay for it with our taxes. They settle suits all the time with tax dollars. You know,
and that's where you would start with the data to drive the actuarial estimates.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
So another question I asked David about, or talked to David about, was people wearing body cams. Frank pointed out you could get a body cam earlier for like $35. Why aren't I wearing a body cam everywhere? Maybe more of us should wear body cams.
Well,
Sorry,
I mean,
hi, Johnny. Johnny was saying he was watching us. Johnny joins in quite often. Johnny is an awesome advocate for liberty out there. He's a very passionate guy, and it always warms my heart and makes me feel like I'm doing something right when Johnny gives me a thumbs up.
Well, and I've noticed, I mean, I'm not sure about you guys, but I've noticed an increase in people wearing GoPros.
Sure.
I mean, so that's happening. I still like the body cams for law enforcement. I'm a big body cam guy anyway when it comes to stuff like that. I want every single lobbyist that walks into the Capitol building to wear a body cam. I mean,
body cams for lobbyists.
Exactly. Let's put it out there and let the public know what they do. But the officers, I'm a real big fan of that. Like I said earlier, the microphone is one thing to record your voice and what you're saying, but it's just that visual. You get that visual from a body cam. It just makes it so much more
information,
more of a prime evidence. Let's put it that way.
Well, does anybody out there have any questions for us? I'm going to scan this a little bit, but
we didn't talk about cannabis.
I can't hear anybody right now.
That's true. We didn't talk about cannabis very much, and I talked quite a lot last night about. I like to talk about cannabis, which is kind of odd because I never partake in cannabis. But I like
I'm going to sign off. I got
right,
bad
later,
reception
Frank.
or something. Sorry, guys.
No,
Bye,
thank you, Frank.
Frank's going to miss out on his favorite topic. Wow, it's quiet all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Frank was driving.
So, holding our elected officials accountable is really important to me. Making them do their job. So,
Sure.
the senators this year, HB 136, that's the medical cannabis bill.
Right.
And it passed through the House with a supermajority, a 2/3 vote for the for cannabis through the House, right? So
Right.
it gets to the Senate. It gets to the Senate, and they pretty much block it. They just said, we don't have enough information about this. We don't know enough about this. They sent it
hang
to a
on.
committee.
Hang on. You're okay. Go ahead.
What's the matter?
Go ahead. Sorry. No. Go ahead. You got it right. Go ahead.
They sent it to a committee in the Senate. and a fellow named Whitney Westerfield, Senator Whitney Westerfield. He's the one that said, we're not going to hear this now. And so he blocked it. And so this year it was very important for the Libertarian Party to be able to help folks get that medicine that they need. It's folks can think whatever they want to, but talk to some veterans, talk to some folks who have seizures, and
Right.
eventually you find somebody who will say that cannabis helps them. So Westerfield blocked that, and that was important to the Libertarian Party this year. And thankfully, we found an excellent candidate, Amanda Billings, and she's running as only opponent against Whitney Westerfield. And so we're excited about her campaign this year and like to see her get in there. But back to accountability for our elected officials. So here they blocked this bill. Basically, what Westerfield and the other senators on the committee did is they just refused to do their job that they were elected to do. Here this passed with a 2/3 vote from the House to the Senate. That's pretty good support. And it gets to the Senate, and they won't even bring it to the floor. They won't even vote on it. Okay. And to me, when they refuse to do their job, when they refuse to do their job, there should be something done about that. So I'm interested to introduce a bill that if something passes from one chamber to the next with a 2/3 or greater, that the other chamber has to at least have a vote on it, up or down. If they don't understand and they don't have enough information, fine, vote it down. Take it up later, something like that. But to just refuse to do your job, and I'm sure there would need to be time frames set on that to make it all work out right. But to just refuse to do your job, to block things, seems very Mitch McConnell like.
Right.
That's how he gets his way. He doesn't have to vote on something. Yeah, there you go, Lex. He doesn't have to vote on it up or down, but he can just block things that he doesn't like and let things through that he does like. And that's not how our system was set up to work. If it passes 2/3 from one house to the other, the people are interested in it, and it should be taken up by the other chamber, not just why, Rob, you tell me, why would they not bring it to a vote?
Well, that's easy. They don't want to be, there's members that don't want to be on record for how they want to vote. So you got one person taking the heat.
I know where you're going, Jacob.
Yeah, they don't want to be accountable. That way on when it's election time, they can go in and they can read the room somewhere and they can say, oh, these people would want me to vote no, so I'm going to pretend that I would vote no. Then they can go somewhere else and it may be opposite effect, and they can pretend like they would have voted yes, and they can always blame it on somebody. Well, it didn't come to vote, so we'll never know. They play these games, and there are actually people suffering physically and mentally, people suffering with their health because they're interested in playing games. And there's worse than HB 136 that they have played these games with, but.
Well, that's an interesting point. And while we're all excited about getting Westerfield out of office, how many people did he cover for in doing that? So if you have doubts about how your state rep or state senator would have voted, if you're not completely clear,
legislate.
Vote against them.
And
I would definitely. Yeah, I would definitely, Jacob, you bring that up, man. I would definitely jump on as a co-sponsor real quick on that, because, like Jacob said, you take 2/3 of the House, you're looking at 66 out of 67 people out of 100. Obviously the people's voice would probably stand in that. And you would think once it goes from the House to the Senate, Westerfield would have been like, you know what? We've got to vote on this. You know, it just passed by supermajority in the House. There's something here that we've got to vote yes or no on. So yeah, I would definitely jump on board with that because, you know, and I think there should be a time frame on the vote, you know, that the Senate would have had on that. Rather it be, okay, you got 4 days to give a time frame or whatever. It don't matter. But I think there needs to be even a time frame for throwing in on that.
Well, you know,
Well, if there was, they would manipulate that. They would just use that time frame to let it die or something, you know. But
We've
there's
seen
ways,
that.
there's ways we can structure it to make it work, you know.
Yeah.
One of the few things that I hear people cite that actually like Mitch McConnell, can't stand McConnell, number of reasons. We don't have that sort of time tonight, but they like that he'll do anything to win. And I think that's largely what's wrong with our politics. I think sometimes, you know, if you're outvoted, you know, 3-2, I think it's more honorable to stand up with your 2 and take your loss and go to the people and say, you know, we stood, you know, as hard as we could with the number of us that you sent there, but we got outvoted. You know, if you're passionate about this, you got to vote for more of our people rather than more of their people. I'm okay with that, but the idea of the shenanigans to you know, basically corrupt the system to win the myopic victory, because guess what? When you resort to that, the other side's going to resort to that too. You can call me naive, but in 10 years, it's going to be a wash. And all you're going to be doing is you're going to be fighting people who are resorting to the same tactics you've resorted to. And when trust breaks down, you can't get anything done, even when you're in agreement on it. And that's why we have to stop sending people to DC who are so interested in winning at all cost, or for that matter, Frankfort. Winning at all, you know, anything at all cost is almost never a good idea, regardless of what it is.
What have you won? You know, what have you won?
Disdain. And Mitch doesn't mind.
You know, they won re-election. Well, what does that do for the people? You know, it doesn't do anything for the people. So it's frustrating. You know, and when you drag stuff out like that, you know, then you can get into committees, and, you know, like me and James had talked about before, we're looking at the pay for some of these state reps and things, and it's per diem, you know, per day pay. And so we're like, how are some of them making so much money when they're only in session like 30 days? Well, it's because when they're out of session, there's all these committees that they can sign on to, and you know, on all these. No wonder they want to make so many new laws all the time. I mean, we had enough laws 100 years ago, and look how many more they've made, and it's because they can get paid to do that. So, you know, what we need is we need a lot of people elected that are not politicians. You know, we need to stop electing politicians. We need to elect regular people that just want to be free and realize that we already have too many laws, but we need to stop electing politicians.
Well, let's recap on where we were with law enforcement reform. I think we all liked the plan Larry Sharpe outlined of quick and qualified immunity. I think at least I saw a lot of head nodding on the personal insurance, civil asset forfeiture. I know we agree on ending cannabis, descheduling cannabis. I know we all agree on that. We're fans of body cams, but some of us disagreed on how to implement it, I think, a little bit. But still, we like transparency. We like people knowing what's going on. We like accountability. And that's where we really diverted to talking about the legislatures instead of law enforcement. But when you talk about abuse of power, you go to the head sometimes, right?
That's right.
Civil asset forfeiture was one that we talked about.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about qualified immunity not being limited to law enforcement. It's not just the beat cops. If anything, I'm more worried. I'm really worried about abuse of DAs. I mean, I know we pivoted to poking fun of the Democratic VP pick, but that's not anything new.
No.
And you know, the idea of a DA wanting a win on the scoreboard, when they know the person they're putting in jail might be innocent, or they know they are innocent due to some evidence they're hiding or withholding, you can't trust that person anymore. You can't. They're out of there. I mean, why would you ever want them in that position again? How would you feel about them being in that position if something happened and they were taking somebody you cared about to trial?
Right.
We can't allow that stuff.
Hey, what about my idea to make the chief of police an elected official? You think that would change anything, or yes?
I've not studied it, but I mean, yeah, just shooting from the hip, yeah, I think that sounds good, but that's something I would love to talk to David about. That's something, yeah. And that's another thing.
More accountable to the people, you know.
Sure.
Makes them more accountable to the people.
I mean, I know I've at least talked to David Patterson. I've attempted to talk to a couple of other law enforcement. They weren't that excited to talk to me. Frank successfully talked to several people in law enforcement. In fact, I think he even has a video on Facebook with them, conversing with them. Spike has reached out to law enforcement. I haven't seen anybody in the D's and the R's really reaching out to law enforcement about, you know, what real changes we can make.
Right.
They're just interested in turning the force of government against law enforcement for a change. And honestly, in my mind, that doesn't fix anything. I mean, there might be a few of us that feel vindicated, like, yay, it's their turn to get it, but it doesn't fix anything.
No, it don't.
Well, they're more interested in a top-down government. You know, the R's and the D's, they like their top-down government. But
right.
If you look back, we're a bottom-up government. You know,
right.
and the libertarians advocate for that. You know, Adam Kokesh, localization. You know, that fixes a lot of these issues. You know, localizing our government, you know, more and more and more. You know, hey, there's this federal cannabis law, so now, you know, it's federally illegal. Well, that's stupid. You know, your local government, says, well, it's legal here. So you've got states where it's legal, but federally it's illegal. And you got some poor person sitting here scratching their head going, what is going on? The law is so complicated. The law was never meant to be that complicated, you know.
And then you've got dispensaries in Colorado that don't have proper access to banking due to federal banking laws. We got to fix that.
Well, the reason they're so complicated is if they're not complicated, the ball is in our court. But as long as they stay complicated, the ball's in the government court.
Well, I think this does a nice job of exemplifying how messed up it is. I was looking at a law the incumbent I'm going against sponsored, and it's the Ceiling Fan Improvement Act of 2020. I'm not joking. It's the Ceiling Fan Improvement Act of 2020. And what it's doing is it's outlining exemptions for power efficiency for large diameter ceiling fans. And, you know, I went and looked at the law that it applies to, and, you know, the law that it applies to, it's not really a law. It's just regulations. But you know, they're talking about the requirement for ceiling fans to have off-on switches and to have speed control separate from the wall control, so on and so forth. And rather than waste your entire evening with it, I just want you to think of it this way: is do you really want improving ceiling fans to require an act of Congress? Because that is really, honest to God, where we are. That's what the name of his proposal tells you. It's the Ceiling Fan Improvement Act of 2020, because that's what it requires now to improve ceiling fans. So
does that tell you how much control they really want? I mean, that just shows what kind of control they really want over everybody.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's just, it's crazy. We've got to get a change in government. We've got to get deregulations.
Right.
We need to get it into effect, and we need to give. And here's the thing: we can't give the country back to the people until we give our states back to the people.
That's right.
If we go to the top first and we give the country back to the people, we'll never get the states back to the people. So we have to start at the state level and give each particular state back to the people and not to the government before we give the country back to the people.
Well, in my mind, you got to send people like me to Washington to go what's up to the state, and we got to send people like you to Frankfurt to make sure that the state doesn't go too nuts with that. Well, we've kept people for about 57 minutes now. I think that was a pretty good run, guys.
Hey,
we got
Rob,
any last words? Yeah.
Yeah, look in that ceiling fan bill and dig
yeah.
through it, and there's probably some kind of corporate bailout or something hid down in there.
Well,
maybe UK will get a $40 million bailout on this one. Let's see about that.
You know, let's give it the benefit of the doubt for a minute. The best really you're going to get out of it is there was a contributor who wanted to make these ceiling fans. They needed a waiver for this, and they managed to get a hold of the incumbent, and the incumbent said, "Yeah, that looks like a good change." And it's not necessarily true that I want to denounce any of that. It's just I'm upset that all that has to happen for somebody to make a better ceiling fan. That's my beef.
I mean, you take it to the House floor and you say, folks, we've got to do something about the ceiling fan crisis. You know, we have a ceiling fan pandemic. You know,
it's a regulatory crisis. We have more regulations than people can actually deal with. Ceiling fans, toaster ovens, microwaves, whatever. I think between you, Lowe's, and the people supplying Lowe's, you'll get it sorted out.
I want to go. I swear, every time we mention the ceiling fan bill, I just want to crack up. I'm going to Big Ass Fans tomorrow, and I'm talking to Big Ass Fans.
They might have some connections. I'm guessing they have some connections, and that's
Lowe's and Home Depot are going to have a civil war over it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if people get mad at business, but if you're a business and the only way you can make a better ceiling fan is by sliding some money at your congressman, I'm kind of finite in how upset I am with you, because I'm still going to want the better ceiling fan. But we gotta let's call it the illicit law market. That's basically what it is. It's the illicit law market. We got to get rid of the illicit law market. We got to shut that down. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Please absolutely go check out these guys' websites, guys. Put your websites in the comments. They can they're already on my Facebook page. They can find their way to my page. Check out these guys. Maybe you want to contribute to these guys or go door knocking with these guys or check out the other candidates. We've got quite a few candidates in Kentucky. They all feel at least somewhat similar to the way we just described. Let us know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have a favorite candidate that I've not been bringing on and what you'd like for me to talk to him or her about. I'm all game for that. I just want to get out the word and let us know about issues we're not covering, because we want to know what you care about, and that's not necessarily always exactly what we're thinking about. So have a good night. Talk to everyone later.